As most people know, in 2009, 2010, the U.S. economy hit rock bottom. A lot of government funding and philanthropic funding was pulling back. At the same time, the California Endowment was announcing that they were going to invest millions of dollars into communities.
I could see instantly that this was going to be an opportunity for us to do something from the beginning and actually probably see it all the way through.
We were having conversations around, how do we do this work together? What is it that we want to accomplish?
We knew resident power, youth power building was going to be very important to this initiative.
We had county and city officials also saying that they wanted to be involved.
What we realized very early on was that, in fact, some of these system leaders were actually protecting the status quo.
Our former mayor actually called TCE and was like, "What are you doing in our city? We don't want you here, we don't want your money."
It was definitely about power. It was about wanting to control something that was going to challenge and change the political landscape.
There's a couple of ways to influence and wield power, and that's with money, right, or with work. And so organizing is work.
My name's Christine Pettit. I'm Executive Director of Long Beach Forward. I'm Hub Manager for Building Healthy Communities Long Beach. Long Beach is a city that people talk about as very diverse. It's also a city that is incredibly divided. There's a lot of acknowledgement of the city's diversity without acknowledging the city's inequities. We found that it's a 7-year life expectancy difference depending on where you live in Long Beach. We can talk about the issues, but it's also really a matter of life and death. Long Beach is really in its infancy when it comes to community organizing, and there is a culture that we really have worked to change. We have no protections in place for renters. We don't have a good plan for affordable housing. When it comes to making land use decisions, we had older white homeowners come out and say, "We don't want to change, everything is fine how it is." So there was that resistance politically to the organizing. We've been chipping away at the housing issue for years. But we are starting to see changes. We see decision makers talking about issues like inclusionary housing, even rent control. We're at a tipping point. I think there are people who are trying to really hold on to the status quo while we're pushing and pushing.
I'm Sandra Celedon, and I serve as the President and Chief Executive Officer for Fresno Building Healthy Communities. When we talk about why politicians are hesitant to invest in our communities, why there's a history of segregation, it all leads back to race, and it's still very much present. Fresno has grown into a divided city, and it really shows in the division between North and South Fresno. That shapes out in the environment, in the investments that we make, where parks are located, where resources like retail are located. I remember vividly this group of 13 and 14-year-olds who said to us, "Why aren't you guys talking about parks?" And I said, "Well, what about parks?" And they said, "Well, the fact that we don't have any parks, that we have to take 3 buses to get to the closest park." The city of Fresno hadn't looked at the Parks Master Plan in like 30 years. They literally just put it on a shelf somewhere and then never looked back. As advocates, what we really wanted to craft was the language to include in the general plan to make sure that the Parks Master Plan got updated. But it also served as this tool to organize folks, to train young people on land use issues. The power of young people, of residents filling that chamber at City Hall, prevented any of our conservative city council people from voting against the Parks Master Plan, whether they liked it or not. So we got a unanimous vote for the Parks Master Plan. But that didn't solve the issue. There's this huge deficit. There's not enough money for parks. And it inspired this greater conversation that we're still holding today. What I tell these young people is that was your power. That's something that these young people will never forget and they will never unlearn.
I've been with Mid-City Can 9 years. I started about 2 days before the initiative unfolded. Mid-City Can's been in City Heights for 30 years this year. I think that's actually been one of our strengths. There was already partnerships and structure and methodology in place that then we were able to build upon. San Diego is historically really conservative. talking about policing issues, racial profiling, all of these issues that are really emotional and intense for people, those were all no-goes. When I first started working on youth bus passes, people would tell me, this will never happen. This is baloney. You're misleading people, Diana. But today, you have people making it a major ballot priority for 2020. One of the power building mechanisms has been to really activate and build a culture of voting in communities like City Heights. City Heights shares districts with some of San Diego's wealthiest neighborhoods who have some of the highest propensity voting. It's our goal to build a voting block by the year 2020. It's going to kind of make City Heights the swing community, which means almost anybody who's going to want to get anything done in the district that City Heights shares with these other communities is going to have to give City Heights what it wants.
My name is Kimberly Williams, and I am the Hub Director for Sacramento Building Healthy Communities. We're the capital city, and so while the state capital sits here, I think folks often forget that we're actually a community as well. We spend a lot of time really just talking to our residents. We surveyed some 8,000 folks in our community. And for Sacramento, the priority was around food access, it was around health access, youth development, and economic development. The Urban Ag Ordinance was definitely one of the successes for our Building Healthy Communities initiative. We have a food issue in our community. It's a food desert. There's folks who don't have access to healthy food for miles. What we wanted to do with the Urban Ag was allow for people to be able to grow food in their own homes or in their own backyards and then be able to sell that. They couldn't do that at the time. We had to first get the ordinance passed at the city. And it was rallying the folks, troops, whether it was residents, farmers, folks who were in the food access business, so to speak, and showing up to city council and testifying. I actually remember sitting in the council chambers, listening to them testify, and one of the women was saying, I've never done this before. I've never, it's like, you'll be fine, you'll be okay. Just speak from your heart. I've actually seen her now in other meetings on other issues, speaking out. It gave her, I think, the energy and the desire to continue using her voice. Now folks can actually sell the food that they're growing to their neighbors. We've got a local farm literally across the street from where our office is. He's now able to provide more food in the community.
We've had some significant wins. Measure N, a living wage for hotel workers in Long Beach. Young people who couldn't even vote yet, but maybe they had a parent in the hospitality industry. They were knocking on doors, flexing their civic engagement muscles, and talking to people about why this was important.
Some of our favorite campaigns are the skate park, our work around juvenile justice reform, school bus passes, watching that become a movement, the halal lunches in schools, which is the Muslim diet. Parents had been going to the school district for years saying, hey, my kids, they're not able to eat lunch. The school district just wasn't hearing them. We were able to pass a policy across the whole school district that wherever there's a significant number of students and families that have dietary requirements, the school district's going to try to meet their needs.
The work that I'm the most proud of was the non-resident fund. The county of Fresno was looking to cut services for undocumented residents. And we were able to create a non-resident fund that enables undocumented people in our community to access specialty care, life-saving specialty care.
We put together a People's Budget campaign that had the Invest in Youth campaign. It had a campaign related to housing. It had a campaign related to language access. The city council spent hours talking about our issues. In the end, they voted on a budget that incorporated 3 out of 4 of our issues. We have really forced our city to talk openly about equity and about issues related to the whole of our community.
We had a protest happen at one of the high schools, and it was just amazing to me to turn the news on and see 3 of the young people that would be with us in our leadership academy leading this protest at their high school. It lasted a week, and they were able to get what they wanted.
Kids who started in our first year of youth council in 2010 are now coming back from college, and we're hiring them.
Young people have grown up seeing the struggle of their parents and at the same time understanding that there is a different path.
It is a powerful thing to watch young people who are saying no more. We need change and are ready to be a part of that change.
That's the hope, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing that Fresno Building Healthy Communities has been able to really awaken and create, and that's hope. Philanthropy struggles with how to measure that.
What we're trying to do is no short of transform our society.
My advice to philanthropists and foundations and donors, you gotta engage with community members.
If we're going to have real change in our communities, it's going to take an effort from everybody.
Change is not something that happens in a neat logic model.
Change also takes patience.
Listen to the people on the ground, and then provide the resources necessary to achieve those outcomes.
It's very hard to get capacity building grants. It's those small organizations that are doing the grimy work, a lot of it with nothing.
So use your power and use your voice to do something.
Residents are really struggling. We're winning things, but conditions are still hard for people.
I want to see communities across our city that have all of the resources necessary for individuals to be able to live healthy and to live with dignity.
We've got to make sure that our kids are graduating, that our kids are not getting suspended. We really have to cut off the school to prison pipeline.
I want to see 5,000 voters at the polls.
I want to see a Long Beach where there isn't a life expectancy difference, where we improve health for everybody.
I really feel that part of my work is about creating a future that's worthy of the next generation.
I see the change that has happened, and I see what can happen.
People have to believe that the impossible is possible.